and Samir stepped off the bus into Willow Creek, a small town in Ohio. The air was cold, sharper than the dusty heat of Syria they left behind. They carried 2 bags each, stuffed with clothes and a few photos from home. Everything else was gone, bombed, burned, or stolen by the war. Her scarf was tied around her head, her dark eyes scanning the quiet street. Samir stood tall, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion. They were both 32, but their faces looked older, carved by years of fear. The resettlement agency gave them a house. It was old, with faded gray paint and a sagging porch. The windows were cloudy, like eyes that hadn't been cleaned in years. Inside, the floors creaked under their steps. The walls smelled of mildew, and the furniture was worn. A lumpy couch, a wobbly table, 2 beds with thin mattresses. Nour touched the kitchen counter, her fingers tracing cracks in the wood. "It's ours," she said softly, trying to smile. Samir nodded. He used to teach math in Aleppo. Nour worked in a bakery. Now, they were strangers in a strange place. The agency worker, a woman named Karen with a tight bun, handed them keys and a booklet. "Rules for living here," she said. "No loud noise. Keep it clean. You're lucky to get this." Her tone was sharp, like they should be grateful. That first night, they ate bread and cheese from a grocery store. The house was too quiet. No bombs, no screams, just silence that pressed against their ears. Nour lit a candle from their bag, a habit from home when power failed. The flame flickered, casting shadows on the walls. They looked like people moving just out of sight. Samir turned on the radio. Static buzzed, then a faint song in English. He turned it off. "We'll be okay," he said, holding Nour's hand. She nodded, but didn't meet his eyes. She was thinking of her sister, Amina, lost in a bombing 2 years ago. Samir thought of his brother, killed by a sniper. They didn't talk about it. They never did. Dot in bed. The mattress squeaked. Nour lay awake, staring at the ceiling. A faint sound came, like a whisper from another room. "Samir," she said. He was asleep. The whisper came again, soft and far away, like Amina's voice calling her name. Nour pulled the blanket tighter. "It's just the house," she thought. "Old houses make noises." The next morning, Samir went to find work. He walked to a hardware store, the only place hiring. The manager, a man with a red cap, looked at his papers. "You speak English good?" he asked. Samir nodded. He'd studied it in school. "Start tomorrow. Stock shelves. Minimum wage." Samir thanked him, hiding his disappointment. Nour stayed home. She cleaned the kitchen, scrubbing stains that wouldn't budge. She found a broom in a closet and swept the floors. Dust floated in the air, catching the sunlight. As she worked, she felt watched. A chill ran down her neck. She turned, but no one was there. The broom fell from her hand. It hit the floor with a loud clack. Her heart raced. That afternoon, a neighbor knocked. An older woman, Mrs. Ellis, with gray hair and a stiff smile. "Welcome to Willow Creek," she said, handing over a plate of cookies. "Where are you from?" Nour said. "Syria." Mrs. Ellis's smile faded. "Oh, that's far." She left quickly. Nour set the cookies on the table. They looked dry, like they had been sitting for days. She didn't eat them. Instead, she cooked rice and lentils, a recipe from home. The smell filled the house, warm and familiar. But as she stirred the pot, the whisper came again, near and clearer now, like Amina was in the room. She dropped the spoon. It clattered into the sink. When Samir came home, he saw her pale face. "What's wrong?" he asked. She told him about the whisper. He frowned. "It's the stress," he said. "We're tired." "It's nothing." But his voice wasn't sure. That night, they heard footsteps above. The ceiling creaked, like someone pacing in the attic. Samir grabbed a flashlight and checked. The attic was empty, just dust and cobwebs. Old houses, he said again. But his hands shook. They went to bed, the candle burning low in the dark. They dreamed of Aleppo, smoke and fire, Amina's hand reaching for her. Then, a new image, a shadow standing over their bed, its eyes glowing like embers. She woke with a gasp. Samir was awake too. "I saw it," he whispered. "In my dream." The house was silent again, but it felt alive. Watching them, Nour woke to the sound of rain capping the windows. The house felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing down. She lay still, listening, half expecting another whisper. Samir was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept. "Bad dreams," he said when she asked. He didn't say more. They ate breakfast in silence: bread, butter, and jam from the store. Nour spread the jam slowly, her knife scraping the bread. The sound felt loud in the quiet house. She kept glancing at the corners, waiting for a shadow to move. None did, but the feeling of being watched never left. Samir left for the hardware store. His job was simple: move boxes, stack shelves, sweep floors. The manager, Mr. Carter, watched him closely. "Don't break anything," he said, like Samir was a child. Samir nodded, his jaw tight. He missed teaching, the chalk on his fingers, the chatter of students. Now, he lifted crates of nails and paint cans, his back aching by noon. A coworker, a young man named Tom, muttered "foreigner" under his breath when Samir passed. Samir pretended not to hear. Back home, Nour tried to keep busy. She scrubbed the bathroom tiles, the grime black and stubborn. The house smelled of bleach, but it didn't feel clean. She found an old radio in a cupboard and turned it on, hoping for music. Static crackled, then a faint voice, not from the radio. "Nour." It was Amina's voice again, soft and pleading. Nour froze, her hands wet with soap. The radio went silent. She unplugged it. Her heart pounding. She walked through the house, checking every room. The living room was dim, the curtains heavy with dust. The bedroom smelled of old wood. In the hallway, a mirror hung crooked. She straightened it, and for a moment, she saw Amina's face behind her own pale, eyes wide, mouth open like she was screaming. Nour spun around. Nothing. The mirror showed only her own scared face now. She sat on the couch, clutching a photo from their bag. It showed Amina, smiling, her hair loose in the sun. They were at a market in Aleppo before the war got bad. Nour's eyes stung. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the photo. "I couldn't save you." A cold breeze brushed her neck, though the windows were closed. Samir came home at dusk, his shirt damp from the rain. He carried a small bag of groceries: milk, eggs, more bread. Nour told him about the voice and the mirror. His face darkened. "It's our minds," he said, but his voice was unsteady. "We've been through too much." They cooked dinner together, a simple stew with potatoes and lentils. The kitchen felt warmer with the stove on, but the shadows seemed to grow longer. As they ate, a glass on the counter slid an inch. They both saw it. Samir stood, checking the table for a slope. "It's nothing," he said, but he didn't sit back down. That night, the whispers came louder, not just Amina's voice, now others, too. Samir's brother, Rami, their neighbor, old Mr. Hassan, who died when their street was bombed. "Why did you run?" the voices asked. "Why didn't you help?" Nour clutched Samir's arm under the blanket. The bed creaked, like someone was sitting at the foot. Samir got up, flashlight in hand. He checked the house again: attic, basement, closets. Nothing but dust and shadows. But in the basement, he found something odd: a small box under a loose floorboard. Inside was a child's drawing, faded, showing a family. The faces were scratched out. He showed it to Nour. "Old owners," he said, but his hands shook as he put it back. The next day, Nour went to the grocery store. People stared. A woman in line whispered to another, "Refugees, taking our houses." Nour kept her head down, paid for her food, and left. On the walk home, she felt followed. Footsteps echoed behind her, but when she turned, no one was there. She walked faster, her bag heavy in her arms. Dotted home. She tried to call a friend from Syria, Lila, who lived in another state. The phone rang, but the line crackle was static. A voice cut through. "Not Lila's. You left us," it said. Nour dropped the phone. It hit the floor, the screen cracking. Samir came home to find her crying. She told him about the store, the footsteps, the phone. He held her, but his face was grim. "We need help," he said. They decided to talk to Mrs. Ellis, the neighbor. She might know about the house. Mrs. Ellis invited them in. Her living room was tidy, with lace curtains and a ticking clock. She poured tea, her hands steady but her eyes wary. "Old houses have stories," she said when they told her about the noises. "This town's had its share of trouble. People come and go." She didn't say more, but her voice hinted at secrets. That night, the house was quiet for the first time. Nour and Samir slept, but their dreams were dark. Nour saw Amina, her face burned. Reaching out, Samir saw Rami, blood on his shirt, pointing at him. They woke at dawn, both gasping. The air felt thick, like the house was holding its breath. The morning sun filtered through the grimy windows, casting pale light across the kitchen. Nour sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea gone cold. She hadn't slept well. The dreams of Amina were sharper now. Her sister's face, half burned, her eyes pleading. Samir was already dressed for work, his face drawn. He didn't mention his own dreams, but Nour saw the tension in his jaw. They ate breakfast in silence, the same bread and jam as yesterday. The knife scraped against the bread, a sound that grated on Nour's nerves. The house felt heavier, like it was pressing in on them. Samir left for the hardware store, his steps heavy on the creaky porch. At work, he stacked boxes in the back room, the air thick with dust. Mr. Carter, the manager, hovered nearby. "Faster," he snapped. Samir nodded, his hands steady, but his mind elsewhere. Tom, the coworker, leaned against a shelf, smirking. "You ever go back where you came from?" he asked, his voice low. Samir ignored him, but the words stung. He thought of Aleppo, the rubble, the screams. He didn't want to go back, but he didn't feel welcome here either. Nour stayed home, trying to keep busy. She swept the floors again, though they were clean. The broom's bristles scraped the wood, a rhythm that calmed her. But as she worked, the air grew cold, the living room dim, like a cloud had passed over the sun. She stopped, her breath catching. A shadow moved in the hallway, tall and thin, its edges blurry. It didn't have a face, but it turned toward her. "You left us," it whispered, its voice a mix of Amina's and others. "Rami, Mr. Hassan." Voices from the war. Nour backed away, her broom clattering to the floor. She ran to the kitchen, her heart pounding. The shadow didn't follow, but the house felt alive, watching. She grabbed the phone to call Samir, but the line was dead. Not even static, just silence. She checked the cord. It was plugged in. Her hands shook as she set it down. That afternoon, she went to the library, needing to get out. The librarian, a young woman named Sarah, smiled kindly. "New in town?" she asked. Nour nodded, her English halting. "From Syria." Sarah's smile didn't falter, unlike others. "Welcome," she said, and handed Nour a card to sign. Nour felt a small warmth, but it faded when she noticed people staring. Two men at a table whispered, their eyes on her scarf. She left quickly, clutching a book she didn't plan to read. Back home, she found a crack in the bedroom wall, new and jagged. It hadn't been there yesterday. She touched it, and the plaster crumbled under her fingers. Behind it, something glinted. She pulled out a small, rusted key, old and heavy. It didn't fit any lock in the house. She tucked it into her pocket. Uneasy, Samir came home late, his shirt dusty from work. He saw Nour's face and knew something was wrong. She showed him the key and told him about the shadow. His eyes darkened. "I saw something too," he admitted. At the store, a hammer had fallen off a shelf, nearly hitting him. It wasn't near the edge. Tom laughed it off, but Samir felt a chill. "It's this house," he said, "or us." They decided to ask Mrs. Ellis about the key. They knocked on her door that evening. She opened it slowly, her face guarded. "What's this about?" she asked. Nour showed her the key. Mrs. Ellis's eyes widened just for a moment. "Old houses have old things," she said, her voice tight. "That's probably nothing. Keep it locked up." She shut the door before they could ask more. That night, the house came alive. Footsteps echoed in the attic, heavy and deliberate. Nour and Samir sat on the couch, a candle burning between them. The flame flickered, though no breeze moved the air. Then, the mirror in the hallway shattered. Glass sprayed across the floor, sparkling in the candle light. Nour screamed, and Samir pulled her close. In the broken shards, they saw faces not theirs. Amina, Rami, Mr. Hassan, their eyes accusing. "You ran," the voices said, louder now, filling the room. Samir grabbed a broom and swept the glass, his hands shaking. Nour clutched the key, her knuckles white. The voices faded, but the air stayed heavy. They didn't sleep. They sat up, watching the shadows, waiting for dawn. The next morning, Samir called a friend from Syria, Omar, who lived an hour away. Omar had come to America a year earlier. "We need to talk," Samir said. Omar promised to visit tomorrow. "Be careful," he said. "Some things follow us." As they waited for Omar, Nour tried to cook, but the stove wouldn't light. She used a small gas burner from their bags, a relic from Syria. The flame sputtered, and for a moment, she saw Amina's face in it, her mouth open in a silent scream. Nour dropped the pot, lintel spilling across the floor. She didn't clean it up. She couldn't. Samir stayed home from work, claiming he was sick. He and Nour sat in the living room, the book from the library unopened between them. The house was quiet, but it felt like it was waiting. The key sat on the table, glinting in the dim light. They didn't touch it. The morning was gray, clouds heavy over Willow Creek. Nour and Samir sat at the kitchen table, the rusted key between them like a silent accusation. They hadn't slept. The broken mirror's glass still littered the hallway, catching the dim light. Nour's hands trembled as she poured tea, the liquid sloshing over the cup's edge. Samir stared at the key, his fingers tapping the table, a nervous rhythm. The house was quiet, but it felt like a held breath, waiting to scream. They ate breakfast, dry bread and a boiled egg each. The eggshell cracked loudly when Nour tapped it, making her flinch. She kept glancing at the hallway, expecting the shadow to return. Samir noticed but said nothing. His own thoughts were on the faces in the mirror. Amina, Rami, Mr. Hassan. Their eyes had burned into him, full of blame. "We need answers," he said finally, his voice low. Omar arrived at noon, his old car rattling into the driveway. He was short, with a beard and tired eyes, like theirs. He hugged Samir tightly. Then Nour, "You look bad," he said, half joking. They sat in the living room, the lumpy couch creaking. Nour offered tea, but Omar waved it off. "Tell me everything," he said. They told him about the whispers, the shadow, the shattered mirror, the key. Omar listened, his face grim. "It's not just the house," he said. "In Syria, we heard stories. Spirits follow those who run. They carry the dead with them." Nour's eyes filled with tears. She thought of Amina, begging her to stay. During the bombing, Samir thought of Rami, shot while they hid. "It's our fault," Nour whispered. Omar shook his head. "It's war's fault. But the dead don't always know that." Omar asked to see the key. He turned it over in his hands, frowning. "This isn't from the house," he said. "It's old, maybe from Syria." Samir's eyes widened. "How?" Omar shrugged. "Sometimes things follow, like the spirits." They decided to search the house again. Omar led the way, his flashlight cutting through the dim rooms. They checked the attic first, discoded everything: old boxes, a broken chair, a cracked mirror. Samir found a loose floorboard. Under it, a small metal box, locked. The key fit perfectly. Inside were papers, yellowed and brittle. They were in English, hard to read, but mentioned a family who lived here decades ago. A child died. The papers said, an accident. The parents left soon after. Nour shivered. The drawing in the basement. She said, the family with scratched out faces. Omar nodded. This house holds pain. Maybe it calls to yours. That afternoon, they went to the library. Sarah, the librarian, helped them look up the house's history. She found old newspaper clippings. In 1953, a fire killed a boy in the house. His parents never recovered. People say it's cursed, Sarah said, her voice soft. No one stays long. Nour felt a chill. Samir thanked Sarah, but his mind was racing. Was it the house, or was it them? Back home, the air felt thicker. Nour cooked dinner rice and chicken, the smell filling the kitchen. But as she stirred, the pot slid across the counter. Untouched, she gasped, backing away. Samir ran in, Omar behind him. The pot stopped, but the room grew cold. A whisper came. Not Amina's this time. Stay. It said, low and rough, like a child's voice twisted by anger. Omar lit a bundle of herbs he brought. Sage from a shop in his town. The smoke curled upward, sharp and bitter. He walked through the house, chanting words from their faith, prayers for protection. The shadows seemed to retreat, but not far. Nour clutched Samir's hand, her eyes on the smoke. For a moment, she saw Amina's face in it, not angry but sad. That night, the house fought back. Doors slammed shut, locking them in the living room. The candle flickered out. In the dark, the shadow appeared taller now, its edges sharper. It had no face, but its presence was heavy, like grief itself. You left us, it said, its voice a chorus of the dead. Amina's voice joined in, then Rami's, then others. Nour screamed, covering her ears. Samir shouted, we're sorry. But the voices grew louder. Omar threw more herbs into the air, his chants faster. The shadow wavered, but didn't vanish. Glass rattled in the windows, the floor creaked, like footsteps circling them. Then silence. The shadow was gone, but the air stayed cold. Omar looked shaken. This is strong, he said. Stronger than I thought. They sat up until dawn. Too scared to sleep, Nour held the photo of Amina, her fingers tracing her sister's smile. Samir stared at the locked box from the attic. The papers inside. We need to face it, he said. Nour nodded, but her heart felt heavy. The house, the spirits, their guilt, it was all tangled together. Omar left at sunrise, promising to return with an elder who knew more about spirits. Don't be alone, he warned, but Nour and Samir knew they already were. The sun rose weakly over Willow Creek. Its light filtered through thick clouds. Nour and Samir sat in the kitchen, the locked box from the attic open on the table. The old papers lay scattered, their edges curled with age. Nour traced the words with her finger, trying to understand the story of the boy who died in the fire. Samir sipped his tea, now cold, his eyes distant. The house was silent, but the silence felt like a threat, heavy and waiting. They hadn't eaten breakfast yet. The bread sat untouched, the jam jar unopened. Nour's stomach twisted with hunger and fear. Omar called that morning. The elder, Baba Khalil, is coming, he said. He knows the old ways. Nour felt a spark of hope, but it was small. The shadow had grown stronger last night, its whispers echoing in her dreams. She cleaned the kitchen counter, wiping the same spot over and over, the cloth damp in her hand. Samir paced the living room, his steps muffled on the worn carpet. The key from the wall lay beside the box, glinting. Mockingl. Wide-eyed Baba Khalil arrived in the afternoon, an old man with a white beard and kind but sharp eyes. He carried a bag of herbs, candles, and a small book of prayers. Omar was with him, his face serious. They sat in the living room, the couch sagging under them. Baba Khalil listened to their story, nodding slowly. This is not just spirits, he said in Arabic. his voice gravelly. It's your pain mixed with the house's. You must face both. He explained a ritual. Burn the herbs, light the candles in a circle, and speak the names of the dead. Tell them your truth, he said. Release the guilt. Nour nodded. Her hands clasped tight. Samir looked doubtful but agreed. They prepared as the sun set, the sky turning orange then gray. Nour cooked a simple meal: bread, olives, cheese to share before the ritual. The smells filled the kitchen, but no one ate much. As they sat, the house creaked, like it was listening. A cup on the table tipped over, spilling water across the wood. Baba Khalil frowned. It knows, he said. They started the ritual at dusk. Candles flickered in a circle on the living room floor. Baba Khalil sprinkled herbs, their smoke rising thick and pungent. He chanted, his voice steady. Nour and Samir joined in, their words halting at first. Amina, Nour said, her voice breaking. Rami, Samir added. Mr. Hassan, the boy from the fire. The smoke swirled, forming shapes, faces, hands reaching out. The house reacted. Wind howled through closed windows, rattling the panes. The candles sputtered but held. The shadow appeared in the corner, taller and darker, its form twisting like smoke. You can't escape, it hissed, its voice a roar of many. Amina's face emerged from it, twisted in pain. Rami's followed, bloodied, then the boy. His skin charred. Nour stood, tears streaming. We ran because we had to, she cried. The bombs were falling. We couldn't save everyone. I'm sorry, Amina. I love you. Samir joined her. Rami, brother, forgive me. We survived for you. The shadow lunged, cold fingers brushing their skin like icy claws. Omar threw more herbs, and Baba Khalil's chants grew louder. The visions came then, vivid and cruel. Nour saw the night. They fled Aleppo, smoke choking the air, screams everywhere. Amina calling her name as a building collapsed. Samir saw Rami fall, his hand outstretched, and new visions. The houses passed, the boy playing, a candle tipping, fire spreading, his parents screaming but too late. The shadow swelled, filling the room. Furniture shook. Books fell from shelves. A crack split the wall, wider than before. Nour felt pulled, like the shadow wanted to drag her in. No, she shouted, grabbing Samir's hand. Baba Khalil held up his book, his voice booming. The smoke thickened, wrapping the shadow like chains. Slowly, the shadow shrank, its whispers fading to moans. The faces softened. Amina smiled faintly. Rami nodded. The boy's eyes closed peacefully. The wind died. The candles burned steady. Silence fell. True this time, not threatening. Baba Khalil wiped his brow. It's weakened, he said, but not gone. You must keep facing it. Omar looked exhausted, his hands shaking. Nour and Samir held each other, their bodies trembling. The house felt lighter, but scars remained. The cracked wall, the spilled water, their raw hearts. That night, they slept fitfully. No whispers came, but dreams lingered. Nour woke once, seeing a faint shadow in the mirror, watching but not attacking. Samir stirred beside her, murmuring apologies in his sleep. In the morning, Baba Khalil and Omar left, promising to check back. Live your truth, Baba Khalil said. Nour and Samir nodded, but the weight wasn't fully lifted. The guilt was theirs to carry, the spirits theirs to honor. Asher's days turned to weeks in Willow Creek, the clouds giving way to clearer skies. Nour and Samir moved through their routines with a cautious ease. The house still creaked, but the sounds were just old wood now, not footsteps from the beyond. Nour woke each morning, listening for whispers, but heard only birds outside. Samir sipped his tea at the table, the papers from the attic box tucked away in a drawer. They ate breakfast together: bread, jam, eggs, the knife scraping softly, a familiar sound without fear. Samir went back to the hardware store. Mr. Carter nodded when he arrived, no sharp words. Tom still muttered sometimes, but Samir ignored him, focusing on stacking shelves, sweeping floors. He even smiled at customers now, his English improving. One day, A man asked about tools, and Samir helped him, feeling useful like in his teaching days. Nour kept the house clean, scrubbing counters, sweeping floors, the motions repetitive but soothing. She planted flowers in the yard, small seeds from the store. They grew slowly, green shoots pushing through soil. She visited the library more, borrowing books. Sarah greeted her warmly. "You're settling in," she said. Nour nodded, a small smile forming. Mrs. Ellis waved from her porch sometimes, her stiffness softening. They talked about the past now. In quiet evenings, Nour shared memories of Amina, her laugh, her cooking. Samir spoke of Rami's jokes, his dreams. They cried, but the tears cleansed. No more rituals, but they lit a candle each night, saying names softly. Amina, Rami, Mr. Hassan, the boy. The flame burned steady, no flickering shadows. One afternoon, Omar visited again. "Without Baba Khalil, how is it?" he asked. They sat on the porch, tea steaming. "Better," Samir said. "The weight is lighter." Omar nodded. "That's how it goes. The dead want remembrance, not chains." He left with a hug, promising to come back. The haunts didn't return fully. A whisper once, faint in the wind, a shadow in the mirror, quick and gone. Nour saw Amina in a dream, not accusing but waving goodbye. Samir felt Rami's hand on his shoulder, warm, not cold. The cracked wall stayed, a scar. But they painted over it, the room brighter. They helped others too. A new refugee family arrived in town. Nour brought food, shared stories. "It gets easier," she said. Samir helped the father find work. The town watched, some still wary, but others smiled. Willow Creek wasn't home yet, but it felt closer. One night, rain tapped the windows like before. Nour and Samir lay in bed, hands linked. The house was quiet, truly. "We made it," Samir whispered. Nour nodded, her eyes closing. But in the dark, a faint echo lingered, a reminder that some shadows never fully fade. The end.